Hyunwoo stood at the observation deck of Terminus 7, staring at the stars beyond the thick glass. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. First contact, real official contact with an alien civilization. After decades of searching the cosmos, humanity had finally received an answer. The Vulcan Imperium wanted to talk. The space station floated in neutral territory, halfway between Earth's solar system and Vulcan space. It was massive, built by the Vulcans centuries ago as a meeting point for different species. Hyunwoo had read the reports. The Imperium controlled thousands of worlds. They had technology beyond human understanding. They had existed for over 10,000 years, and now they wanted to meet humanity. Hyunwoo adjusted his diplomatic uniform. Behind him, his team of 12 prepared for the meeting. Scientists, military advisors, linguists, and cultural experts. Earth had sent its best. They carried gifts, data on human culture, and hopes for peaceful cooperation. "They're ready for us," said Corporal Day, the security officer assigned to protect the delegation. Hyunwoo nodded and led his team through the curved corridors of the station. The architecture was alien, all smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. They reached the conference hall and the doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the Vulcans waited. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, with skin like polished stone. Their eyes were golden and cold. 3 of them sat at the far end of a long table. The one in the center wore elaborate armor decorated with symbols that probably meant something important in their culture. "I am High Commander Vexel," the central Vulcan said. His voice came through a translator device, sounding harsh and metallic. "You are the humans." It was not a question. "I am Ambassador Hyunwoo of Earth," Hyunwoo replied, bowing slightly. "We come in peace, hoping to establish friendly relations between our peoples." Vexel made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace, how quaint," said humans. "Let us discuss your place in the galaxy." The negotiations began badly and got worse. For 3 hours, Vexel and his advisors spoke to the humans like adults, explaining simple concepts to slow children. They dismissed Earth's technology as primitive. They called human art adorable. When Hyunwoo tried to discuss trade agreements, Vexel waved a hand dismissively. "You have nothing we need," Vexel said. "Your world is small. Your people are weak. You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. We have forgotten more than you will ever know." Hyunwoo felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "Perhaps we can learn from each other. Every civilization has unique perspectives to offer." "Unique?" Vexel leaned forward. "You are the 47th species we have contacted in the last 1,000 years. You are not unique. You are barely interesting." Back on Earth, Admiral Jiwon watched the transmission from Earth Defense Command headquarters. The underground facility hummed with activity as officers monitored the diplomatic mission. President Tae-sung stood beside Jiwon, his face grave. "They're not taking us seriously," Tae-sung said quietly. "No," Jiwon agreed. "They're not." On the screen, Vexel stood up. "I grow tired of this conversation. Let me show you something, humans. Let me demonstrate what the Imperium represents. Let me show you the price of arrogance." Before Hyunwoo could respond, every screen in the conference room activated. More than that, every screen on Earth activated. Every television, every computer, every phone. The Vulcans had hacked into humanity's global network. The image showed space. A beautiful blue-green world hung against the stars. Jiwon felt her blood turn to ice. That's New Sol. New Sol, humanity's first real colony beyond the solar system, established 30 years ago, now home to 10 billion people. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children, families who had left Earth to build something new. "Yes," Vexel's voice echoed through every speaker on Earth. "Your colony. Watch carefully, humans. This is what happens to those who presume to stand as equals before the Imperium." The Vulcan fleet appeared. Hundreds of ships, massive and terrible, surrounding the peaceful world. New Sol's defense fleet scrambled to respond. 40 ships against hundreds. It was over in minutes. Hyunwoo watched in horror as the Vulcan ships fired, not at the defense fleet but at the planet. Beams of light bright as stars pierced the atmosphere. Cities disappeared in flashes of white heat. The oceans began to boil. "No," Hyunwoo whispered. "Please no." But the Vulcans did not stop. They were methodical, systematic. They made sure their cameras captured everything. The desperate evacuation attempts. The ships trying to escape only to be shot down. The final transmissions from the surface. People crying for help that would never come, on Earth. 10 billion people watched as 10 billion others died. In Seoul, a mother held her daughter tight, both of them crying as they watched the world where their relatives lived burn. In New York, an old man collapsed, clutching his chest, his son's final message frozen on the screen. In Mumbai, London, Cairo, Tokyo, across every city on Earth, humanity watched and screamed and wept. It took 6 hours. 6 hours for New Seoul to die completely. The Vulcans made sure the broadcast continued until the end, until the once beautiful world was nothing but a glowing cinder, dead and lifeless. Then Vexel's face filled every screen. This is the price of human arrogance. You sought to negotiate as equals. You are not equals. You are insects. Remember this day. Remember what happens when insects annoy the Imperium. The transmission ended. At Terminus 7, Hyunwoo sat frozen in his chair. His team wept openly. Corporal Day had his hand on his sidearm, shaking with rage, but there was nothing he could do. They were 12 people on an alien station, surrounded by an enemy that had just murdered 10 billion humans. Vexel stood. Our business is concluded. You may return to your world. Tell your leaders to remember this lesson. Back on Earth, President Taesung's office filled with the sounds of alerts. Every government leader, every military commander demanding action, demanding response. The president looked at Ji-won. Admiral, he said quietly, what are our options? Ji-won's face was stone. Her eyes, usually warm, had gone cold. She thought of her sister on New Seoul, her sister who had 3 children, her sister who was now ash floating in radioactive wind. Mr. President, Ji-won said, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. The Vulcans wanted to demonstrate their power. They wanted to teach us fear. She turned to face Taesung directly. I suggest we demonstrate our own lesson. I suggest we teach them what happens when you back a human into a corner. I suggest we show them that killing 10 billion of us was the worst mistake they will ever make. Taesung looked at the screens, still showing the dead world. He thought of the children, the families, the dreams that had been burned away. He thought of humanity's history, of every time someone had tried to destroy them and how humans had always fought back. What do you need? He asked. Ji-won's smile was terrible to see. Everything, she said. I need everything we have, and I need permission to use it all. Within the hour, the UN Security Council convened an emergency session. Within 6 hours, they passed a resolution with a name that would echo through history. Operation Alien Extinct had begun. The world stopped. For exactly 24 hours, every human being on Earth and in the solar system simply stopped. Factories went silent. Stock markets closed. Schools and offices shut their doors. 10 billion people grieved together. Then something remarkable happened. The crying stopped. The fear turned into something else. Something colder. Something more dangerous. At the UN headquarters, President Taesung addressed the General Assembly. Every nation's representative was present, either in person or by hologram. For the first time in human history, there were no abstentions. No debates. No political games. The Vulcan Imperium has declared war on humanity, Taesung said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the steel beneath it. They murdered 10 billion innocent people to teach us fear. They wanted us to know our place. They wanted us to bow down. He paused, looking at each representative in turn. I propose we teach them a different lesson. I propose we show them what humanity does to those who try to exterminate us. All in favor of Operation Alien Extinct? Every hand went up. Every single one. The vote was unanimous. Dr. Bora stood in her laboratory, 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. Around her, screens displayed weapon designs that had been theoretical for decades. Projects that governments had funded just in case but hoped they would never use. Now they would use everything. Bora was 53 years old and had spent her entire career studying advanced weapons. Nuclear physics, quantum mechanics, nanotechnology, relativistic kill vehicles. She had published papers that made military generals nervous and peace activists protest. She had always argued that humans needed to be ready for threats they could not yet imagine. She had been right. Show me everything, she told her assistant. Every project, every design, every crazy idea we ever had. The screens filled with data. Weapons that bent the laws of physics. Weapons that used the laws of physics as weapons themselves. Missiles that could cross star systems in weeks. Devices that could tear apart matter at the molecular level. bombs that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Dr. Bora, her assistant said nervously. Some of these designs are banned by international treaty. Bora looked at him. Those treaties were written to prevent humans from killing each other. Show me the treaty that says we cannot kill aliens who genocided 10 billion of us. The assistant had no answer. At Earth Defense Command, Admiral Jiwan assembled her war council. The holographic table showed the known galaxy, with Vulcan territory marked in red. It covered a huge portion of space. Captain Sung Min of the ESS Retribution attended by video link. His ship was already in deep space, one of Earth's newest and most powerful warships. Commander Haewon appeared from the Stealth Fleet headquarters. General Jae-hyun connected from the Marine Corps training facility. Thoughts? Jiwan asked. Sung Min spoke first. We're outnumbered. They have thousands of ships. We have hundreds. We're also outgunned, Haewon added. Their technology is more advanced in most areas. And they have more experience, Jae-hyun said. They've been fighting wars for thousands of years, Ji-won nodded. So we cannot fight them the way they fight. We need to fight like humans. What does that mean? Sung-min asked. It means we cheat, Ji-won said. It means we lie, we trick, we hit them where they're not looking. It means we do not play by their rules. They think we're primitive? Good. Let them underestimate us. They think we'll follow civilized warfare? We'll show them that civilization is a luxury we can no longer afford. She manipulated the holographic display, highlighting several systems. We have advantages they don't know about. Our technology might be newer, but it's also more creative. We haven't had thousands of years to become set in our ways. We still remember how to adapt, how to innovate, how to survive. What's the strategy? Haewon asked. Ji-won smiled grimly. We hit them everywhere at once. We make them afraid. We destroy their infrastructure. We target their leadership. We show every species they've conquered that the Imperium can bleed. And we do not stop until they are gone. In the asteroid belt, Agent Minji prepared for her mission. She was 28 years old and had been with Earth Intelligence for 6 years. She spoke 12 languages, could pilot anything with an engine, and had a gift for becoming whoever she needed to be. Now she needed to become someone who could infiltrate an alien empire. The surgery will take 3 days, the doctor told her. We'll modify your vocal cords to match Vulcan frequencies. Install translation implants. Change your biochemistry so their sensors read you as one of their slave species. Will it hurt? Minji asked. The doctor hesitated. Yes? Good, Minji said. I want it to hurt. I want to remember why I'm doing this. Her mission was simple in concept, impossible in execution. She would infiltrate Vulcan space, hack their communication networks, and steal everything. Fleet movements, technology specs, leadership locations. Everything humanity needed to win this war. The doctor began the surgery. Minji thought of her brother on New Seoul, her little brother who had been 7 years old, who had loved drawing pictures of spaceships, who would never draw anything again. She thought of him through all 3 days of agony. The factories of Earth, Mars, and the Belt roared to life. Every shipyard worked triple shifts. Every mining operation extracted resources at maximum capacity. Every manufacturing plant retooled for war production. In orbit around Earth, a ship took shape. It was enormous. Larger than anything humanity had ever built before. The ESS Vengeance, they called it. A dreadnought that would carry enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. On Mars, engineers assembled the stealth ships. Vessels coated in materials that absorbed sensor signals, that bent light around them, that could slip through enemy space unseen. Haewon's ships would be the knife in the dark. In the belt, workers assembled the relativistic kill missiles. Simple in concept, terrifying in execution. Tungsten rods accelerated to 90% the speed of light. When they hit something, the kinetic energy alone would vaporize anything in the impact zone. No explosives needed, just physics and rage. Bora's weapons came online one by one. The quantum disruptors that could tear apart molecular bonds. The bionanites that could disassemble machinery atom by atom. The Kasaba howitzer devices that focused nuclear explosions into directed energy beams. Every weapon was tested. Every system was checked and rechecked. Humanity had 3 months before the Vulcans would expect any response. They used every hour. In Beijing, children too young to fight built memorial walls, carefully writing each name of the dead. 10 billion names. They would write until every single one was remembered. In Lagos, old men who had not held weapons since the last wars volunteered to fight. "We remember what it means to defend our people," they said. In Sao Paulo, programmers created viruses designed to infiltrate alien computer systems. Code that would turn Vulcan technology against itself. Every human being contributed something. Money, time, skills, labor. There were no debates about cost. No arguments about budgets. The entire species moved with single purpose. At the UN, President Tae-sung met with the world leaders privately. "They will not expect this," the president of the African Union said. "They think they broke us." "Good," Tae-sung replied. "Let them think that right up until the moment we hit them." "What if we lose?" the Prime Minister of India asked quietly. Tae-sung was silent for a moment. "Then we lose. But we make sure they remember us. We make sure every species in the galaxy knows that humanity does not go quietly into the dark. We make sure that even if they win, the cost is so high that they never ever threaten another species again." "And if we win?" the Chancellor of Germany asked. "Then we make sure this never happens again," Ji-won said, entering the room. "We make sure no other species suffers what we suffered. We build something better." 3 months after New Sol died, the fleets were ready. Thousands of ships, from massive dreadnoughts to tiny stealth fighters. Millions of soldiers trained and armed. Weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics and morality. Admiral Ji-won stood on the bridge of the ESS Retribution beside Captain Sung-min. Through the view screen, she could see the rest of the fleet. Behind them, Earth hung in space, beautiful and fragile. "All ships report ready," Sung-min said. Ji-won activated the fleet-wide communication. Every ship, every soldier, every sailor heard her voice. "3 months ago, the Vulcan Imperium murdered 10 billion of our people. They did it to teach us fear, to make us submit, to show us our place in their galaxy." She paused. "They succeeded in teaching us something, but it was not fear. It was not submission. They taught us that there are some acts so evil, so monstrous that mercy becomes impossible. They taught us that sometimes the only response to extinction is to become extinction itself." Another pause. "Today we begin Operation Alien Extinct. Today we show the Vulcans and every other species in this galaxy what happens when you try to destroy humanity. Today we show them that we are not prey. We are not victims. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We are the species that split the atom and walked on other worlds. We are the species that refused to die when the universe tried to kill us 1,000 times. Her voice grew harder. "The Vulcans wanted to know our place in the galaxy. Let us show them. Our place is anywhere we choose to stand. And right now we choose to stand on their graves." The Vulcan fortress of Krell 9 had stood for 600 years. It guarded the border between Vulcan space and the outer territories, a massive station with defensive capabilities that could stop entire fleets. 200 warships orbited it constantly. The Vulcans considered it impregnable. They were wrong. Commander Haewon's stealth fleet drifted through space like ghosts. 20 ships, each one invisible to Vulcan sensors. Each one carrying a payload of relativistic kill missiles. They had spent 2 weeks crossing into Vulcan territory, moving slowly, carefully, avoiding every patrol. Now they were in position. "All ships confirm target lock," Haewon said quietly. On her display, the fortress hung in space, beautiful in its own way. Lights sparkled from thousands of windows. Inside were 50,000 Vulcan soldiers and support staff. Haewon thought of New Sol, of the children who had died there. Of the families. 50,000 seemed like a small number in comparison. "Fire," she said. The missiles launched, simple tungsten rods, each one accelerated to 90% light speed. They crossed the distance to the fortress in seconds. The Vulcans never saw them coming. The first rod hit the fortress's northern section. The kinetic energy of an object traveling that fast was unimaginable. The impact vaporized a quarter of the station instantly. Before the Vulcans could even begin to understand what was happening, the other missiles hit. The fortress came apart like a toy in a child's angry hands. The Vulcan fleet scrambled to respond, but they had no target. They fired wildly into space, hitting nothing. Haewon's stealth ships were already gone, jumping to faster than light speed, heading to their next target. The entire battle took 4 minutes. When news reached the Vulcan High Command, High Commander Vexel stared at the reports in disbelief. "How?" he demanded. "How did they penetrate our borders? How did they destroy Krell 9? His advisors had no answers. The humans were supposed to be primitive, inferior. Yet they had just destroyed one of the Imperium's most important military installations without losing a single ship. Send the second fleet, Vexel ordered. Find these humans. Destroy them. But the humans were not done. Captain Sungmin commanded the ESS Retribution, leading the main battle fleet into Vulcan territory. Unlike Haewon's stealth ships, Sungmin's fleet was obvious, loud, visible to every sensor in the region. That was intentional. Vulcan fleet detected, his tactical officer reported. 300 ships heading directly for us. Good, Sungmin said. Let them come. The Vulcan commander, Admiral Thex, was confident. 300 ships against 60 human vessels. It would be a massacre. Finally, these upstart humans would learn their place. The fleets met in the Crimson Nebula, a region of space filled with ionized gas that created beautiful red and gold clouds. It would have been romantic if not for the violence about to occur. All ships fire at will, Thex commanded. The Vulcan fleet opened fire with their energy weapons. Beams of light crossed space targeting the human ships. Many hit, and several human vessels took damage. 3 ships were destroyed outright. Then the humans fired back. But they did not fire normal weapons. They fired missiles. Hundreds of them, thousands. Each one was small, fast, and incredibly smart. They dodged Vulcan defensive fire, weaving through space like living things. What are these? Thex muttered, watching his screens. The missiles reached the Vulcan ships and detonated. But these were not normal explosions. These were nuclear-shaped charges. Kasaba howitzer devices that focused the energy of nuclear blasts into narrow beams. The effect was devastating. Vulcan ships designed to handle normal nuclear weapons could not withstand the concentrated fury of these devices. 20 Vulcan ships died in the first minute. All ships, defensive pattern Omega, Thex ordered, but it was too late. The humans were not fighting like the Vulcans expected. They were not standing in line and trading shots. They were moving, dodging, using the nebula's interference to hide their movements. Then General Jae-hyun's Marines did something the Vulcans had never experienced before. Drop pods launched from the human ships. Thousands of them. They did not target empty space or planets. They targeted the Vulcan ships themselves. What are they doing? Thex screamed. The pods crashed through the hulls of Vulcan vessels and Marines poured out. Humans in powered armor, carrying weapons designed to fight in close quarters. They moved through the corridors of Vulcan ships, fighting deck by deck, room by room. The Vulcans had never fought like this. For them, space combat meant ship-to-ship battles. The idea of boarding enemy vessels was ancient, barbaric, something they had abandoned thousands of years ago. The humans had not abandoned it. They had perfected it. Jae-hyun led his own unit onto a Vulcan capital ship. The corridors were wide, designed for the tall Vulcans, but that just gave the Marines more room to work with. They moved in teams, covering each other, using tactics developed over centuries of human warfare. The Vulcans fought back, but they were not prepared for this. Their weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not close-quarters battle. The Marines cut through them. Bridge secured, Jae-hyun reported, standing in the command center of the enemy ship. Around him, Vulcan officers lay dead or dying, taking control of the ship now. Across the battle, the same thing happened again and again. Human Marines seized control of Vulcan vessels and turned their weapons on their own fleet. The battle turned into chaos. Admiral Thex watched his fleet fall apart. In 2 hours, he had lost 280 ships. The humans had lost 34. Retreat, he ordered. All ships, retreat! But the humans pursued. They chased the fleeing Vulcan ships, destroying them one by one. When the battle finally ended, only 7 Vulcan vessels escaped. Sungmin stood on his bridge looking at the casualty reports. 3,000 human deaths. It hurt, every single one hurt. But they had won, sir, his communication officer said. Admiral Jiwon wants to broadcast a message. Put it through, Sungmin ordered. Jiwon's face appeared on every screen in the human fleet. But more than that, the humans had hacked into Vulcan communication networks. Her message broadcast across dozens of Vulcan worlds. Behind Jiwon, footage played. Footage of Vulcan ships burning, of their fortress destroyed, of their military might broken and scattered. And mixed with that footage, clips from New Seoul, the dying world, the desperate people, the children crying for help that never came. People of the Vulcan Imperium, Jiwon said calmly. 3 months ago, you murdered 10 billion humans. You broadcast it live across our world. You wanted us to see. You wanted us to know fear. The footage continued to play behind her. Now we broadcast to you. We want you to see. We want you to know what happens when you wake the sleeping giant. You taught us this language of violence. You showed us what cruelty looks like. We are fast learners. Her eyes were cold as space itself. This is not vengeance. This is not justice. This is extinction. We will not stop until the Vulcan Imperium is ashes. Until every ship is broken. Until every fortress is rubble. Until your empire is a memory used to frighten children. You wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. Now we teach you yours. The broadcast ended. On Vulcan worlds, people watched in growing fear. The Imperium was supposed to be invincible, yet in 3 months the humans had destroyed major installations, wiped out fleets and struck terror into hearts that had not known fear in generations. Agent Minji watched the broadcast from a Vulcan city. She had successfully infiltrated their society, passing as a member of one of the slave species. She had hacked into their military networks and was sending intelligence back to Earth constantly. What she learned was valuable. The Imperium was vast but overextended. They ruled through fear and their subject species hated them. Rebellions simmered on dozens of worlds, kept in check only by the threat of overwhelming force. But now that force was bleeding. The invincible Imperium was proven vincible. Minji sent her report to Earth. The Empire is fracturing. Subject species are watching humanity's success. Many are ready to rebel. If we push harder, the entire structure might collapse. On Earth, President Taesung received the report. He met with G1 in the war room. If we push harder, Taesung said, we could end this faster than we thought, but it will cost more lives. It will cost lives either way, G1 said. The question is how many and whose. Dr. Bora entered the room carrying a datapad. I have something new, she said. Something that will terrify them. She showed them her latest creation, bio-nanites, microscopic machines that could be spread across a planet through the atmosphere. They would not harm living beings, but they would destroy technology. Power plants, factories, computers, everything. They would disassemble it all at the molecular level. It's a weapon that destroys capacity to make war without killing civilians directly, Bora explained. We can cripple their industrial worlds without committing genocide. How fast does it work? Jiwon asked. A single deployment can disable an entire planet's infrastructure in 48 hours. Taesung looked at the designs. This was still terrible. Planets rendered helpless, civilizations crippled. But compared to what the Vulcans had done to New Sol, compared to what humanity could do if they wanted pure revenge, this was mercy. Do it, he said. Target their industrial worlds. Destroy their ability to build ships and weapons. And keep the pressure on their military. Emperor Thalvox had ruled the Vulcan Imperium for 300 years. In that time, he had conquered 27 species, expanded his empire across thousands of worlds, and crushed every rebellion before it could truly begin. He had never known defeat, until now. He stood in his throne room on Volcara Prime, the Vulcan homeworld, watching the reports flood in. Another fleet destroyed. Another industrial world disabled. Another fortress reduced to debris. The humans were everywhere, striking like ghosts, vanishing before his forces could respond. How many ships have we lost? He asked his military advisor. 3,000, my emperor. Perhaps more. Communications are disrupted across 7 sectors. 3,000 ships. The Imperium had tens of thousands more, but this was still catastrophic. And it was not just the ships. It was the fear. Species that the Vulcans had conquered centuries ago were rising up, emboldened by humanity's success. The Empire was fracturing. Bring me High Commander Vexil, Thalvox ordered. When Vexil arrived, he looked older, tired. The arrogant commander who had ordered New Sol's destruction was gone, replaced by someone who understood he had made a terrible mistake. My emperor, Vexil began, but Thalvox raised a hand for silence. You told me the humans were primitive, the emperor said quietly. You told me they would learn fear. You told me destroying one of their colonies would make them submit. I was wrong, Vexil admitted. I did not understand them. No one understands them, Thalvox said, looking at the battle reports. They fight like nothing we have encountered before. They use weapons we never imagined. They take losses that would break any other species and keep coming. It is as if they cannot be stopped. He turned to face Vexil directly. I am authorizing the use of planet killers. We will assemble a fleet at Volcara Prime, equip it with our most forbidden weapons, and we will glass Earth just as we did to their colony. If they want extinction, we will give them extinction. Vexel paled. My Emperor, the planet-killer weapons have been banned for 4,000 years. If we use them, every species in the galaxy will turn against us. They are already turning against us, Thalvox roared. Thanks to these humans, we have no choice. Earth must burn. Deep in Vulcan space, Agent Minji intercepted the communication. The Vulcans were planning to destroy Earth. They were building a fleet of ships armed with weapons that could crack a planet's crust, boil its oceans, and render it lifeless. She encrypted the message and sent it on an emergency channel back to Earth. Then she began gathering every piece of information she could find about the planet-killer fleet. Its composition, its location, its timetable. She had 48 hours before the fleet would be ready to launch. On Earth, the message reached Admiral Ji-won in the middle of the night. She read it 3 times, then immediately contacted President Tae-sung. They're planning to attack Earth directly, she told him. They're building a planet-killer fleet at their homeworld. Tae-sung felt his blood run cold. How long do we have? 2 days, maybe 3. After that, the fleet launches, and in 3 weeks it reaches our solar system. Can we stop it? Ji-won was silent for a long moment. There's only one way. We have to strike Volcara Prime directly. We have to destroy the fleet before it launches. The Vulcan homeworld, Tae-sung said quietly. The heart of their empire. It will be defended by everything they have left. Yes. How many of our people will die? Ji-won met his eyes. Many, perhaps most of our fleet. But if we don't try, Earth dies. Everyone dies. All 10 billion of us. Tae-sung thought of the choice. Send thousands to their likely deaths or wait for billions to die. It was no choice at all. Do it, he said. Send everything we have. And may whatever gods exist forgive us for what we're about to do. The human fleet assembled in the outer rim, just beyond Vulcan sensor range. Every ship they had, the massive dreadnoughts like the ESS Vengeance, the swift attack cruisers under Sung Min's command, Haewon's stealth fleet, the marine carriers with Jaehyun's troops, support vessels, medical ships, supply freighters, everything. Ji-won stood on the bridge of the ESS Retribution, looking at the fleet display. 2,000 ships. It sounded like a lot until you remembered they were about to attack the most heavily defended system in the entire Vulcan. Imperium. Intelligence reports 5,000. Vulcan ships protecting their homeworld, Sung Min said. He was calm, but everyone could hear the tension in his voice. Plus orbital defense platforms, surface-to-space weapons, minefields, and who knows what else. Good odds, then, Jaehyun joked over the communication channel. A few nervous laughs answered him. Ji-won activated the fleet-wide channel. Everyone knows what we're here to do. Everyone knows what happens if we fail. I won't lie to you. Many of us won't make it home. Maybe none of us will. She paused, looking at the faces on her screens. Young and old. Humans from every nation on Earth. They had all volunteered for this. Every single one. But if we win, we save Earth, we save humanity. We end the Vulcan Imperium and make sure no other species suffers what we suffered. That's worth dying for. That's worth everything. Another pause. The Vulcans thought we were weak. They thought killing 10 billion of us would break us. Instead, it forged us into something they cannot comprehend. Something that refuses to die. Something that will fight until the last breath, the last bullet, the last ship. Her voice grew stronger. Today we show them what that means. Today we show them that attacking humanity was the last mistake the Vulcan Imperium will ever make. All ships jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, heading straight for Volcara Prime. The Vulcan defenders detected the human fleet immediately. Alarm screamed across the homeworld. Emperor Thalvox rushed to his command center, watching the tactical displays in disbelief. They're attacking here, he said. They're insane. They're desperate, his tactical advisor corrected. They know about the planet killers. This is their only chance to stop us. Then we destroy them, Thalvox said coldly. Every last ship. Show them what happens when insects attack the hive. The Battle of Volcara Prime began. Haewon's stealth fleet struck first, appearing from nowhere to destroy the orbital defense platforms. Explosions blossomed across the planet's orbital space. The Vulcans scrambled to respond, but Haewon's ships were already gone, repositioning for their next attack. Then Dr. Bora's quantum disruptors activated. These experimental weapons created localized disruptions in space-time itself, generating fields that disabled Vulcan shields. The effect lasted only minutes, but that was enough. Sungmin's battle fleet charged through the gaps in the Vulcan defenses. Energy weapons blazed, missiles flew, ships on both sides died in fire and fury. The space around Volcara Prime became a graveyard of broken vessels and dead warriors. Hull breach on deck 7 through 12, Sungmin's damage control officer reported. We've lost main engines. Switching to backup. Keep firing, Sungmin ordered. The ESS Retribution shuddered as Vulcan weapons tore into it, but it kept fighting. Jae-Hyun's Marines launched their assault on the orbital shipyards where the planet killer fleet was being assembled. Drop pods rained down on the massive stations. Marines fought through corridors filled with Vulcan soldiers pushing toward the critical systems. Plant the charges, Jae-Hyun ordered his teams. We need to destroy these shipyards completely. His Marines worked fast, placing nuclear charges on the main support structures. Around them, the battle raged. Vulcan defenders fought desperately to protect their planet killer fleet, but the Marines kept pushing forward. On the surface of Volcara Prime, Haewon led a strike team directly to the Imperial Palace. They dropped in stealth pods, avoiding most of the defensive fire, and fought their way through the palace guards. Ambassador Hyunwoo was with them. He had insisted on coming. I want to look the Emperor in the eyes, he had said. I want him to see a survivor of New Seoul before he dies. They reached the throne room. Emperor Thalvok stood there, surrounded by his personal guard. He looked at the humans with something that might have been respect. You came all this way to kill me, he said. Impressive. Foolish, but impressive. You killed 10 billion of us, Hyunwoo said. Did you think we would just forget? Did you think we would let you try it again? I thought you would understand your place, Thalvox replied. Every species must learn this lesson eventually. Some learn it peacefully, others must be taught through pain. And what lesson have you learned today? Haewon asked. Thalvox smiled bitterly. That there are some species that refuse to learn at all. That some species would rather burn the galaxy than submit. Perhaps that is why you humans are so dangerous. Surrender, Hyunwoo said. Order your fleets to stand down. And this, never, Thalvox said. The Imperium will endure. If not through me, then through my successors. We have existed for 10,000 years. You have existed for barely a moment. We will outlast you. No, Haewon said quietly. You won't. She fired. Emperor Thalvox fell, and with him the command structure of the Vulcan Imperium collapsed. In orbit, Jae-Hyun's charges detonated. The shipyards exploded in brilliant nuclear fire, taking the planet killer fleet with them. The threat to Earth was destroyed, but the battle continued. The Vulcan fleet, learning of their emperor's death, fought with renewed fury. They had nothing left to lose. Ship after ship died on both sides. The war lasted 14 months. When it ended, humanity counted its losses. 300 million dead, soldiers, sailors, Marines, support staff, and civilians caught in the fighting. On Earth, memorial walls covered entire city blocks, each stone carved with names. 10 billion from New Seoul, 300 million from the war. The numbers were so large they stopped meaning anything, until you remembered that each number was a person. Someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. Admiral Ji-won stood before the memorial in Seoul, looking at the names. Her sister's name was there, her 3 nieces and nephew. She traced the carved letters with her fingers, tears running down her face that she no longer tried to hide. I saved Earth, she whispered to the stone, but I couldn't save you. Behind her, President Taesung waited quietly. He had his own names to mourn. His son had died at the Battle of Volcara Prime. Taesung had signed the order that sent him there. We did what we had to do, Taesung said finally. Did we? Ji-won turned to face him. We became monsters to fight monsters. We killed millions of Vulcans. We destroyed their worlds. We ended an empire that had existed for 10,000 years. Did we have to do all of that? Or did we go too far? Taesung had no answer. He suspected this question would haunt humanity for generations. Captain Sung-min sat in his hospital bed, looking at where his legs used to be. The doctors had saved his life, but they could not save his legs or his right arm. Cybernetic replacements would come eventually, but for now he was broken. His crew visited him, the survivors of the ESS Retribution. Of the 800 people who had served on his ship, 143 had survived. Captain, his tactical officer said, the memorial service is tomorrow. Will you attend? Sungmin looked at him. I can barely move.
How am I supposed to attend?
We'll carry you if we have to, another crew member said. You're our captain. You belong there. So they did. The survivors carried their captain to the memorial service where humanity honored its dead and tried to understand what it had become. General Jae-hyun did not attend any memorial services. He was dead, killed in the final assault on the Vulcan shipyards. He had died saving his Marines, holding a choke point so they could escape. They had recovered his body and brought it home. At his funeral, thousands came. Not just military personnel, but civilians. People whose lives he had saved by destroying the planet-killer fleet. They came to say thank you to a man who could no longer hear them. Commander Hae-won stood at his grave after the ceremony ended. She had served with Jae-hyun for 10 years. They had been friends. Now he was gone. We won, she said to the gravestone. We actually won. But you already know that. You made it possible. She placed her hand on the cold stone. I'll make sure they remember you. Not as a killer, but as someone who died protecting others. That matters. It has to matter. On Volcara Prime, the Vulcan people struggled to rebuild. Their emperor was dead. Their military was shattered. Their empire was gone. Species they had conquered for centuries were declaring independence. The great Vulcan Imperium had fallen in just over a year, and humanity occupied their homeworld. It was a strange occupation. The humans did not act like conquerors. They did not enslave or abuse the Vulcans. Instead, they brought food, medical supplies, and engineers to help rebuild the infrastructure that the war had destroyed. Many Vulcans did not understand. Why do you help us? They asked. We tried to exterminate you. The human soldiers and aid workers had various answers. Some said it was to prevent more suffering. Some said it was to prove humanity was better than the Imperium had been. Some admitted they did not know, but they would help anyway because it was the right thing to do. President Tae-sung addressed the question in a speech to the United Nations. The entire galaxy watched the broadcast. We fought the Vulcan Imperium because they tried to destroy us, he said. We won that war, but winning means we now have a choice. We can become the next empire, ruling through fear and force. We can take vengeance on every Vulcan for what their leaders did, or we can try to build something better. He paused, looking directly at the camera. The Vulcans showed us what empire looks like. They showed us what happens when one species decides it has the right to rule all others. They showed us cruelty and oppression and genocide. We can either repeat that pattern or we can break it. Another pause. I choose to break it. Humanity chooses to break it. We will help rebuild the worlds damaged by war. We will support the independence of species that were enslaved. We will establish a galactic council where all species have equal voices. And yes, we will hold the Vulcan leadership accountable for what they did to New Sol. The trials began 6 months after the war ended. Surviving Vulcan commanders and officials who had participated in New Sol's destruction were brought before an international tribunal. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy. Ambassador Hyun-woo served as chief prosecutor. He had survived the war, but the experience had changed him. His hair had gone completely white. He walked with a cane from injuries received during the assault on the Imperial Palace. But his voice was still strong. The accused claimed they were following orders. Hyun-woo said during his opening statement. They claimed that destroying New Sol was necessary to maintain order. They claimed it was their right as the superior species. He looked at the defendants. High Commander Vexel was among them, the architect of New Sol's destruction. But there is no order that justifies genocide. There is no law that permits the murder of 10 billion innocent people. There is no species superior enough to decide which others deserve to live or die. The trials lasted months. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The galaxy watched as the truth of the Imperium's crimes was laid bare. Not just New Sol, but countless other atrocities committed over thousands of years. In the end, Vexel and 23 other high-ranking officials were found guilty. The sentence was execution. Hyun-woo did not attend the executions. He had seen enough death. Instead, he visited the New Sol Memorial, the same one where Ji-won had stood months before. It's done, he told the names carved in stone. Justice has been served. I don't know if that matters to you now. I don't know if anything can make up for what was taken, but it's all I could give you. Dr. Bora looked at her designs and felt sick. The weapons she had created had won the war. The quantum disruptors, the bio-nanites, the relativistic kill missiles. They had all worked exactly as intended. They had killed efficiently and effectively. She thought about shutting down her research, walking away from weapons development forever. But then she received a message from the new Galactic Council. They needed her expertise to develop defensive technologies, ways to protect worlds from future threats without resorting to genocide. I created monsters, she told her assistant. Now I need to create shields. It would not erase what she had done. But perhaps it was a start. Agent Minji never fully recovered from her infiltration mission. The surgery to disguise her as an alien had left permanent effects. Her voice was different. Her biochemistry was altered. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger. She retired from intelligence work and became a teacher. She taught history and interspecies relations at a school in New Seoul's replacement colony, New Hope. Her students asked her about the war, and she told them the truth. We did terrible things, she said. Necessary things perhaps, but terrible nonetheless. We became something dark to fight darkness. Now your generation needs to make sure we never have to become that again. The Galactic Council formed 3 years after the war ended. Representatives from over 100 species gathered on a neutral space station to establish new laws and principles for interstellar relations. Ji-won attended as Earth's military representative. She was now Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, though she had tried to retire multiple times. Tae-sung had convinced her to stay. The galaxy needs to see that humanity can be responsible with power, he had told her. They need to see that we won't become the next Imperium. The Council's first act was to outlaw genocide and establish an interstellar court to prosecute such crimes. The second act was to ban planet-killer weapons and limit the development of weapons of mass destruction. Some human politicians protested. We won because we had superior weapons, they argued. Why would we give up that advantage? Because, Ji-won said during the debate, keeping those weapons means living in fear that someone else will use them against us. Because the only way to truly be safe is to make sure no one has the power to commit genocide. Not them, not us. Not anyone. The motion passed 50 years after New Seoul's destruction. The galaxy was transformed. The former Vulcan Empire had become a federation of independent worlds. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges happened regularly. Wars still occurred, but they were small, localized, and subject to council intervention. Humanity had become one of the leading voices in galactic affairs, not through conquest, but through example. Human engineers helped develop new worlds. Human teachers spread literacy and education. Human mediators helped resolve disputes, but humanity never forgot what it had done to achieve that position. An aging Sung-min, walking on cybernetic legs that never quite felt right, taught at the Interstellar Naval Academy. His students came from a dozen different species,